Welcome to Primal Armor, a podcast centered on helping each and every listener strive for a healthier tomorrow. I'm your host, Jeff Kimple, and I'll be covering every aspect within the field of health, helping you build that strong foundation for improving your physical health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, and more. It's time to take your personal wellness into your own hands, and Primal Armor is going to help you reach those goals. I just want to thank you for taking the time today to tune in and listen to today's topic. Enjoy. Before we get started into the episode, I just want to take a few seconds to thank today's sponsor, Anchor Podcasts. They allow me to create and edit these podcasts for you guys. They're also the ones who distribute this podcast to other platforms such as Spotify and the Apple Podcast app on your phone, so you guys can listen to it anywhere at any time. It's everything needed all in one app. I encourage you all to get started today. Go download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm and follow the podcast. Welcome back, everybody. Life has definitely gotten the best of me lately. I've been working a ton and traveling, so I haven't posted here in a while. So I just want to thank you in advance for understanding, but I'm hoping to get back into the swing of things and get back into normal routine. We're picking right back up where we left off, on episode 27. And today, we're going to be talking a very controversial topic for some people. We're going to be covering vaccinations. I think this is a very important topic to be bringing up right now, especially with COVID just picking back up and the flu season looming right ahead of us. For anyone who would like to argue against vaccinations, I'm just going to flat out tell you right now that you're wrong. I would like to provide you with some examples on why. Let's take smallpox, for example. Smallpox dates all the way back to the Egyptian Empire around 300 BC, which was determined by smallpox rashes found on the preserved mummy of Pharaoh Ramses. It's also been hinted at in writing in 4th century China and all throughout the medieval times, so smallpox has been affecting the human race for thousands of years. It's a devastating disease and it kills over 1/3 of the people it infects, and it increasingly was growing through the 1700s and 1800s. It wasn't until the late 1950s when the World Health Organization began a global campaign to help eradicate smallpox with a vaccine. In the 1960s, smallpox had been eradicated in Northern America and Europe. In the 1970s, smallpox was eradicated in South America, Asia, and Africa. So after thousands of years of smallpox devastating the human population, on May 8th, 1980, the world was officially declared free of smallpox. It was officially eradicated, all due to a vaccine that was distributed across the world. Let's take another major disease, for example, polio. Polio was one of the most feared diseases that there ever were back in the 1950s. It disabled and paralyzed its victims and made people fear going outside just in the summer because that's when it seemed to peak. And that might sound a little familiar now, huh? Fearing going outside and interacting with others. The polio vaccine was introduced throughout the 1950s and the 1960s. In the United States, cases fell from over 15,000 cases each year in the 50s to less than 100 per year in the 60s, and then less than 10 per year in the 70s. And since 1979, there have been no cases of polio in the United States. These are just two major cases of just many, proving the incredible capabilities of vaccinations that they can have in the human body. Unfortunately, there are other vaccine-preventable diseases that have not gone away. These can easily be passed on to others who aren't protected by the vaccine. So, you're starting to see more and more people shy away from vaccinating themselves or their children. So you want to do yourself a favor by making sure you and your family is up to date on your vaccinations. It's just like eating healthy food and exercising. It's important to your overall health. Proper vaccination practices are one of just the most convenient and safest preventative measures available today. Many people are very uninformed when it comes to vaccinations. They think they can catch something just from receiving one, and that's completely false. Vaccines contain dormant or inactive strands of said virus, which is incapable of contracting anything from it. It allows your body to create antibodies for this virus to be able to fight it off easier and prevent you from getting these deadly diseases. If you don't want to vaccinate yourself or your children, you're just putting yourself at a higher risk of contraction for these diseases, especially if you frequently travel, and it also puts others in harm as you're more likely to spread it as well. And not only skipping proper vaccine milestones can be dangerous, it can be very expensive in the long run. The average influenza illness can last up to 2 weeks or more, and potentially causing you to miss work days. And then contracting things like hepatitis can cause you to lose just like up to a month or more of work, which means thousands of dollars lost, hours upon hours of vacation lost, or worse, even the loss of a job because you aren't making it there. There are tons of vaccine preventable diseases out there like this that you can protect yourself from. There's diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, measles, mumps, rubella, the list goes on. And many of these are completely preventable with proper vaccination. And then, just the one big argument and the one myth that I'd really like to put to rest is the fact that people think vaccinations cause autism. If you've ever watched the movie called Vaxxed, then you know that they're against vaccinations, stating that the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccination increase the risk of autism in children. There's not one single controlled study that's ever been found with the association of the MMR vaccine and autism. Their association between the two was very likely because these children who received these vaccines were required to, as a result, to attend special education preschools, correlating that every single autistic kid there was linked to a vaccination. So just remember, everybody, correlation does not mean causation. Just because these kids had to have that vaccine does not mean it caused their autism. They already had their autism, which was making sure that they went to that school. It's more likely that the rise in autism is actually caused from the increase of eating processed garbage that we're putting into our diets rather than the vaccinations. And that's something that I want to dive into and research at a later date and let you guys know more about in a future episode. But there's been extensive research done on vaccinations and autism, and there's no link between vaccinations causing autism. So, just the main reason I'm bringing this up right now is because of the looming pandemic that we're living in right now. There doesn't seem to be an end in sight, and there won't be an end in sight until a vaccination is created. We don't know what type of vaccine it's going to be. If it's just going to be a one and done, like many of these preventable disease vaccines, or if it's going to be like the flu shot where we have to get it every single year. In my opinion, I feel like it's going to be like the latter, where you're required to get the coronavirus vaccine every single year, or you'll be forced to wear a mask, just like they do with the flu shot in certain employers already. And I was reading an email that I got at work, and that's really what got me interested and fired up to talk about vaccines right now. When all of this started and exponentially started to spread, we were right at the end of flu season, and we were either testing for the flu or for COVID. If you had one, most likely you didn't have the other, and that's how they ruled that out. So right now, we're starting to see another spike in cases, especially with kids going back to school and with this year's flu season looming in the distance. I like to consider myself a very healthy individual overall, and I hardly ever get sick, like not even the sniffles. On the rare occasion that I do get the flu, man, it puts me out for the count. I feel like I've been hit by a truck, and that I'd probably rather be dead than feeling how I do in that moment. And I haven't been diagnosed with COVID yet, so I don't know how I would respond or feel with that. But I sure know that I don't want that on top of the flu at the same time. That would almost surely hospitalize me, if not kill me. And I consider myself one of the healthiest people I know. Now imagine all those people out there who are already at high risk because they have a disease, they're elderly, children. If they get both of those at the same time, that's bad news bears right there. If there is any year for you to consider getting a flu shot, this would be the year. I would not want to take the risk of contracting both at the same time, and I'm pretty sure you don't either. That's why I'm recommending every single person this year to get a flu shot, for those reasons. Even if you're one of those people who are against all other vaccines, please get a flu shot this year. Don't take the risk. It's not worth it. If some of the healthiest people out there aren't even surviving COVID, you're seeing some athletes just getting put out for the count. And if you already feel like you're like that because of the flu, add both those on top of each other, and it's just not going to be good. That's when you're going to see all those numbers shoot up. You're going to see a lot more deaths coming from it. And that can most likely be prevented or lessened with getting a flu shot. So, like I said, I recommend everyone to get a flu shot this year. Don't take the risk. It's not worth it. So again, I just want to thank everyone who is tuning back in after my extended break. I'm really hoping to hit it hard again with weekly episodes. I would love if you guys would reach out to me to make episodes over any topic you'd like covered. I'd like to make this a listener-specific podcast and be covering what you guys are looking for. So always reach out to me if you feel like you have a good idea in mind. Until then, I'll be working on getting my life together and getting you guys some more podcast episodes.